are closely connected. The pain of someone on one side of the world causes suffering on the other side. The issue of peace and coexistence in the global community is no longer irrelevant. It is extremely relevant to us all. We need new and innovative laws that can help ensure international peace and security. Recognizing this need, HWPL, which is a global peace organization, and its International Law Peace Committee, drafted the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. The DPCW, while upholding the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, pursues a more complete peace. How will this declaration change the world?
Article 1.
On Earth, there are so many conflicts, big and small, between and within nations for various reasons. But does it sound alright to you that armed force is used to resolve this issue? The DPCW ultimately aims to prohibit the use of armed force.
Article 2.
Also, the DPCW declares that states should not produce various types of weapons which cost astronomical sums of money to make and maintain. It calls upon states to gradually dismantle the existing weapons and reduce military bases. The money and effort spent on armaments should be repurposed to serve the benefit of humanity.
Article 3.
States should respect each other and develop friendly relations. This not only refers to international relations, but also includes the people of each state. States should condemn and criminalize acts of aggression. Also, states should take measures to ensure that their citizens and corporations do not contribute to violations of international law.
Article 4.
By doing so, each state can protect its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Military, political, economic, or any form of coercion should not be used to violate the existing state boundaries.
Article 5.
States should not engage in any intervention that seeks to divide or separate a state, and attempts at succession should not be recognized prematurely. In case of nation-states that have been divided, they should be encouraged to engage in cooperation and dialogue which may provide the divided peoples with their right to self-determination and unified government. But what if disputes occur nonetheless? How does the DPCW propose to resolve this issue?
Article 6.
The DPCW declares the states have the obligation to settle their international disputes through peaceful means. Various forms of dispute resolution can be proposed, but in a manner that does not endanger international peace and security. And states should carry out any judgment or decision reached by a judicial body, such as the International Court of Justice.
Article 7.
Also, even if exercised in self-defense, the use of force should be strictly limited. Let's say someone throws a stone at you, and it would be outrageous to attack back with a cannon. The excessive use of force is not acceptable in the international community. But too many armed conflicts are taking place even at this moment. How long must we be preoccupied with responding to immediate crises arising from the problems that have already occurred? Isn't there any new and innovative way to bring conflicts to a complete end?
Article 8.
Recognizing the seriousness of religious conflicts, the DPCW seeks to strengthen joint efforts to resolve them. States should foster religious freedom and respect diversity of religions and beliefs. and states should prohibit the usage of religion to justify or incite acts of violence against others.
Article 9.
In circumstances where individuals or groups perpetrate acts of violence in the name of their religion, states should take adequate measures that lead to the prosecution and punishment of such activities. Such measures should, in extreme cases, include the proscription of faith groups. But is this all? We, HWPL, made efforts to present a better direction for the future of our world, which has long suffered from wars.
Article 10.
It's the ideas of war that lead to actions of war. We want the word war to disappear from our vocabulary. Peace education that leads to people to learn, speak, and practice peace, and peace movement that sows the seed of culture into people's hearts. Through such a culture, if peace is instilled in the hearts and minds of humanity, a world of lasting peace will be possible even without the compulsion of law. We, HWPL, are carrying out the following activities to achieve adoption of the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War by the United Nations. The first is advocacy towards civil society worldwide. Through the Legislate Peace campaign, the DPCW is receiving wide support from around the world. All the signatures and letters of support from civil society testify to this, and they will be presented to the governments and the UN. HWPL and its two wings, IWPG and IPYG, will work together with the HWPL International Law Peace Committee, Peace Advisory Council, Publicity Ambassadors, HWPL Peace Advocacy Committee, and many other partner organizations to discuss practical ways to achieve adoption of the DPCW by the UN. Also, we will raise our voices to call for the implementation of the DPCW. The second is establishing cooperative relations with various countries for the development and adoption of the DPCW. We will discuss and share opinions on the possibility of national-level support for the DPCW, and the supporting countries should spread a culture of peace by developing and implementing peace policies based on the DPCW. Working-level meetings should be held with representatives from each country to discuss measures for development and adoption of the DPCW. The countries that actively support the declaration will call on the UN to adopt the DPCW. Through the support of many countries, if the DPCW gets adopted by the UN and implemented globally, a beautiful world without war will become a reality. Today, the world is one global village. Although it may be invisible to our eyes, all of us are closely connected. The pain of someone on one side of the world causes suffering on the other side. The issue of peace and coexistence in the global community is no longer irrelevant. It is extremely relevant to us all. We need new and innovative laws that can help ensure international peace and security. Recognizing this need, HWPL, which is a global peace organization, and its International Law Peace Committee, drafted the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. The DPCW, while upholding the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, pursues a more complete peace. How will this declaration change the world?
Article 1.
On Earth, there are so many conflicts, big and small, between and within nations for various reasons. But does it sound alright to you that armed force is used to resolve this issue? The DPCW ultimately aims to prohibit the use of armed force.
Article 2.
Also, the DPCW declares that states should not produce various types of weapons, which cost astronomical sums of money to make and maintain. It calls upon states to gradually dismantle the existing weapons and reduce military bases. The money and effort spent on armaments should be repurposed to serve the benefit of humanity.
Article 3.
States should respect each other and develop friendly relations. This not only refers to international relations, but also includes the people of each state. States should condemn and criminalize acts of aggression. Also, states should take measures to ensure that their citizens and corporations do not contribute to violations of international law.
Article 4.
By doing so, each state can protect its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Military, political, economic, or any form of coercion should not be used to violate the existing state boundaries.
Article 5.
States should not engage in any intervention that seeks to divide or separate a state, and attempts at succession should not be recognized prematurely. In case of nation-states that have been divided, they should be encouraged to engage in cooperation and dialogue which may provide the divided peoples with their right to self-determination and unified government. But what if disputes occur nonetheless? How does the DPCW propose to resolve this issue?
Article 6.
The DPCW declares the states have the obligation to settle their international disputes through peaceful means. Various forms of dispute resolution can be proposed, but in a manner that does not endanger international peace and security. And states should carry out any judgment or decision reached by a judicial body, such as the International Court of Justice.
Article 7.
Also, even if exercised in self-defense, the use of force should be strictly limited. Let's say someone throws a stone at you, and it would be outrageous to attack back with a cannon. The excessive use of force is not acceptable in the international community. But too many armed conflicts are taking place even at this moment. How long must we be preoccupied with responding to immediate crises arising from the problems that have already occurred? Isn't there any new and innovative way to bring conflicts to a complete end?
Article 8.
Recognizing the seriousness of religious conflicts, the DPCW seeks to strengthen joint efforts to resolve them. States should foster religious freedom and respect diversity of religions and beliefs. And states should prohibit the usage of religion to justify or incite acts of violence against others.
Article 9.
In circumstances where individuals or groups perpetrate acts of violence in the name of their religion, states should take adequate measures that lead to the prosecution and punishment of such activities. Such measures should, in extreme cases, include the proscription of faith groups. But is this all? We, HWPL, made efforts to present a better direction for the future of our world, which has long suffered from wars.
Article 10.
It's the ideas of war that lead to actions of war. We want the word war to disappear from our vocabulary. Peace education that leads to people to learn, speak, and practice peace, and peace movement that sows the seed of culture into people's hearts. Through such a culture, if peace is instilled in the hearts and minds of humanity, a world of lasting peace will be possible, even without the compulsion of law. We, HWPL, are carrying out the following activities to achieve adoption of the Declaration of Peace and cessation of war by the United Nations. The first is advocacy towards civil society worldwide. Through the Legislate Peace campaign, the DPCW is receiving wide support from around the world. All the signatures and letters of support from civil society testify to this, and they will be presented to the governments and the UN. HWPL and its two wings, IWPG and IPYG, will work together with the HWPL International Law Peace Committee, Peace Advisory Council, Publicy Ambassadors, HWPL Peace Advocacy Committee, and many other partner organizations to discuss practical ways to achieve adoption of the DPCW by the UN. Also, we will raise our voices to call for the implementation of the DPCW. The second is establishing cooperative relations with various countries for the development and adoption of the DPCW. We will discuss and share opinions on the possibility of national-level support for the DPCW, and the supporting countries should spread a culture of peace by developing and implementing peace policies based on the DPCW. Working-level meetings should be held with representatives from each country to discuss measures for development and adoption of the DPCW. The countries that actively support the declaration will call on the UN to adopt the DPCW. Through the support of many countries, if the DPCW gets adopted by the UN and implemented globally, a beautiful world without war will become a reality.
Namaste.
Namaste.
So, hello everyone. It is our great joy and pleasure to get to see you all, and especially that it is our very first seminar for Nepal. And actually, we've been yearning for this event for the last 3 years since we began working for Nepal and Nepal's peace. So again, it is our great pleasure and to see you all. And just before we start, let me introduce my colleagues. So here, Mrs. Annie Song, who's in charge of global territories of HWPL Seoul South Branch.
Namaste. Nice to meet you all. Thank you for participating in this seminar. Hope that this will be helpful in building our cooperation together for peace.
Okay, thank you, Annie.
Thank you.
So next, let me introduce Mr. Leo.
Hello, my name is Leo. I've been working with John for quite a while, and I hope that through this opportunity, we'll be able to make peace in Nepal and spread a culture of peace in Nepal as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And lastly, Leah.
Nice to meet you too. Probably someone have a cold for me, and I hope we have a great time through this seminar and have a spirit of the world peace. Thank you.
Thank you. So let us begin. Today we'll briefly talk about what HWPL is and what we aim, especially in the country of Nepal, and also we will talk about our peace initiatives and our achievements, and then we cover some of the current histories as to why we started this peace initiative as a peace NGO, and then wrap up. So let us begin. And firstly, it is
Miss Leah.
Leah.
I'm really great honor to introduce about our organization. Then can we have a next slide? Yeah, next one. So, yeah, before me knowing about how we work, but before it, I want to introduce about the HWPL. HWPL is a non-profit, non-government organization founded in the 2013, working for the world peace and cessation of war. The full name is A Heavenly Culture, World Peace, Restoration of Light, and there are 70 branches in Korea and another 100 branches around the world. So you must be wonder what the mean of the heavenly culture. The HWPL stand for the heavenly culture. It means that all the heavens like air, water, a lot of nature things are not are free for everyone. The peace have to be for everyone, not specific reason or religious or gender or ethnic. So about the HWPL, we cooperate with the leaders in the education, governments, and religious leader, and we received 700,000 signatures of supported from the 173 countries since 2016 April to advocate for the declaration. And HWPL synergy between the civil society and governments to ensure the implementation. And for the world peace, HWPL need effort at local, national, and international level to apply the declaration. Probably you're very curious about what is the declaration, and it's gonna be the highlight in our seminar. So in the HWPL, we have 4 peace committees. One is HWPL International Law Peace Committees, which is export of law from the 15 countries, and its goal of the achieving peace through the established legal binding document comparative with the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. Second is HWPL Advisor Council, who giving advice and opinion and analysis of their respective field, who are distinguished world leaders. And third is publicity ambassadors, who is well known for personality who acting build activeness and direct engage in the publicizing the HWPL's peace achievement. And the last is HWPL Peace Advocate Committees. Can you push the ego? Yes. This committee is in a unique position to argue their respective nation to recognize and adopt the principle of the DPCW through creating awareness raising activities. Next slide, please. So HWPL is officially admitted by Korean and UN. This is the picture of the registration in Seoul. And next slide is UNDPI registration. And third, we recently registered in ECOSOC too. So our chair introduced about our chairman Lee, how he tried to make the HWPL. The first, he was a war veteran at the Korean War, and he was a frontline combat soldier of the Korean War. So he experienced a lot of sound of gunshot, bombs, and tragedies, and a lot of people died during this war. And the second, that he is also the religious leader. He felt that a lot of wars in this current world have comes from the religious problem, like conflict between the different religions. So for the religious people have to contribute for the world peace and harmony, not for the war. Last page. So there's a lot of principles of the peace, but the main idea is world peace does not belong to an individual, but to all despite their religious background. And everyone should help, because the peace does not belong to an individual, but to all. Okay, so next one. So there was in 2013 probably, we have a declaration of world peace. This is for the declaration that Chairman Lee that gives all the sectors what have to do for the world peace to make together. And the last one, and then Chairman Lee have going to travel a lot of world for the peace tour. So to introduce our organization and cooperating with the other countries to make us a real peace in their world too. And the last is a World Alliance Religious Peace Summit. This is the one of our biggest summit in the September, and a lot of the leaders of the countries, government, and religious leader come and try to discuss about how we could make the peace actually possible in their world. So next one. So for this seminar, the purpose of the seminar is main idea is one Nepal in harmony, culture of peace, to measure to cooperate for the one Nepal in harmony through a culture of peace. And we are gonna try to seeking for the cooperative project, so we could work. Nepal could be peaceful together in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. If you have any questions so far, just type it on the chat. We actually have another staff member online who will be actually able to answer all the questions that you have. So don't be afraid if you guys have questions. So this part I'll be covering. It's introducing HWPL's peace initiative. So HWPL, for achievement of world peace and cessation of war, we work with mainly two initiatives. And first one is Law for Peace, and second one is the Warp Office. So I'll be talking about Warp Offices first. So what is a Warp Office? So it's actually an interfaith dialogue platform where religious leaders can gather together, and they could discuss on why conflict is being caused due to religious roots. So we try to increase mutual understanding and clear out all the misunderstandings so that all religions can harmonize together rather than fighting with each other. So this is kind of like the history of how the Warp Office started, but I'll cover real quick because we actually have a more detailed version later in the seminar. But it started in 2014 when the religious leaders gathered in South Korea for a peace summit called the Warp Summit, and they have agreed to work together with us to achieve peace among religions. So in the next year, we held the first annual commemoration of the Warp Summit, and we have discussed on establishing the Warp Offices, the platform for interfaith dialogue. And after that, during those years, we have established Warp Offices around the world. And in 2016, the second annual commemoration of the Warp Summit was held, and over 200 leaders representing over 10 religions, they have gathered to discuss in more depth about how we can achieve peace through this platform. And in 2017, you can see that a lot of offices were created in 125 countries. So it was actually a big success. And this is the second initiative, which is called Law for Peace. And this is the one I would like to focus more on. So one of our initiative is to implement an international law that could achieve cessation of war and world peace. Because there are currently existing international laws, but there are many loopholes in which can be abused to gain one country's benefit. So in order to reduce all the loopholes in the current international law, we are trying to create a new legally binding instrument which could achieve world peace and cessation of war. So this is history on how we have developed this initiative. So in 2013, the Declaration of World Peace was proclaimed, and this actually started this initiative. And for the 2014 Warp Summit, there has been international law experts and former presidents, prime ministers, chief justices, and etc., they have gathered in South Korea to sign an agreement to propose an international law. So this kind of sparked the drafting of a document later called the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. And in 2015, the first annual commemoration of the Warp Summit was held. And this is where we presented a document named Convention on Renunciation and Cessation of War and International Armed Conflicts, which later changes into a Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. But I'll talk about that later more in detail. And in 2015 and through 2016, there has been meetings held with international law experts, and there were a set of international law experts that we have inaugurated called the HWPL International Law Peace Committee, and they held several meetings and official and unofficial meetings, and within the 6 months period of time, in 2016 March 14, there was the proclamation ceremony of the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, and later on in 2016, the second annual commemoration of the Warp Summit was held, and this was to gather UN experts and international law experts and governmental officials to develop the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War into a legally binding instrument so that we could introduce this document to UN. So this is the main two initiatives that we have. And we'll further on talk about a document called the DPCW, which we have emphasized. So,
all right. Thank you very much for the brief introduction of HWPL. So now we have been, continuously mentioning about this document called DPCW. It's actually called the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. And can you go to the next slide? And so before I begin, explaining to you in detail about what this document really is, let us watch a short introductory video, and then we'll be back.
The world is one global village. Although it may be invisible to our eyes, all of us are closely connected. The pain of someone on one side of the world causes suffering on the other side. The issue of peace and coexistence in the global community is no longer irrelevant. It is extremely relevant to us all. We need new and innovative laws that can help ensure international peace and security. Recognizing this need, HWPL, which is a global peace organization, and its International Law Peace Committee, drafted the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. The DPCW, while upholding the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, pursues a more complete peace. How will this declaration change the world?
Article 1.
On Earth, there are so many conflicts, big and small, between and within nations for various reasons. But does it sound alright to you that armed force is used to resolve this issue? The DPCW ultimately aims to prohibit the use of armed force.
Article 2.
Also, the DPCW declares that states should not produce various types of weapons which cost astronomical sums of money to make and maintain. It calls upon states to gradually dismantle the existing weapons and reduce military bases. The money and effort spent on armaments should be repurposed to serve the benefit of humanity.
Article 3.
States should respect each other and develop friendly relations. This not only refers to international relations, but also includes the people of each state. States should condemn and criminalize acts of aggression. Also, states should take measures to ensure that their citizens and corporations do not contribute to violations of international law.
Article 4.
By doing so, each state can can protect its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Military, political, economic, or any form of coercion should not be used to violate the existing state boundaries.
Article 5.
States should not engage in any intervention that seeks to divide or separate a state, and attempts at succession should not be recognized prematurely. In case of nation-states that have been divided, they should be encouraged to engage in cooperation and dialogue which may provide the divided peoples with their right to self-determination and unified government. But what if disputes occur nonetheless? How does the DPCW propose to resolve this issue?
Article 6.
The DPCW declares the states have the obligation to settle their international disputes through peaceful means. Various forms of dispute resolution can be proposed, but in a manner that does not endanger international peace and security. And states should carry out any judgment or decision reached by a judicial body, such as the International Court of Justice.
Article 7.
Also, even if exercised in self-defense, the use of force should be strictly limited. Let's say someone throws a stone at you, and it would be outrageous to attack back with a cannon. The excessive use of force is not acceptable in the international community. But too many armed conflicts are taking place even at this moment. How long must we be preoccupied with responding to immediate crises arising from the problems that have already occurred? Isn't there any new and innovative way to bring conflicts to a complete end?
Article 8.
Recognizing the seriousness of religious conflicts, the DPCW seeks to strengthen joint efforts to resolve them. States should foster religious freedom and respect diversity of religions and beliefs. And states should prohibit the usage of religion to justify or incite acts of violence against others.
Article 9.
In circumstances where individuals or groups perpetrate acts of violence in the name of their religion, states should take adequate measures that lead to the prosecution and punishment of such activities. Such measures should, in extreme cases, include the proscription of faith groups. But is this all? We, HWPL, made efforts to present a better direction for the future of our world, which has long suffered from wars.
Article 10.
It's the ideas of war that lead to actions of war. We want the word war to disappear from our vocabulary. Peace education that leads to people to learn, speak, and practice peace, and peace movement that sows the seed of culture into people's hearts. Through such a culture, if peace is instilled in the hearts and minds of humanity, a world of lasting peace will be possible, even without the compulsion of law. We, HWPL, are carrying out the following activities to achieve adoption of the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War by the United Nations. The first is advocacy towards civil society worldwide. Through the Legislate Peace campaign, the DPCW is receiving wide support from around the world. All the signatures and letters of support from civil society testify to this, and they will be presented to the governments and the UN. HWPL and its two wings, IWPG and IPYG, will work together with the HWPL International Law Peace Committee, Peace Advisory Council, Publicy Ambassadors, HWPL Peace Advocacy Committee, and many other partner organizations to discuss practical ways to achieve adoption of the DPCW by the UN. Also, we will raise our voices to call for the implementation of the DPCW. The second is establishing cooperative relations with various countries for the development and adoption of the DPCW. We will discuss and share opinions on the possibility of national level support for the DPCW, and the supporting countries should spread a culture of peace by developing and implementing peace policies based on the DPCW. Working level meetings should be held with representatives from each country to discuss measures for development and adoption of the DPCW. The countries that actively support the declaration will call on the UN to adopt the DPCW. Through the support of many countries, if the DPCW gets adopted by the UN and implemented globally, a beautiful world without war will become a reality.
Alright.
We're
So-
back.
I hope you had a good look at what the DPCW is about, and also about the, each articles here within the DPCW through the video. So just explaining a little bit more in detail about this document. So first of all, we, as Mr. Leo has explained, this is one of the document and one of our greatest achievements we've made for our initiative of Law for Peace. And with this, we are doing a lot of peace activities all around the world. So what is the DPCW? Basically, we are trying to develop this DPCW into a legally binding document which can set a standard in our international community on achieving peace and also through the cessation of war. Next page, please. As I've mentioned, that's why all our essential objectives of HWPL's peace activities are all manifested in this document. So this document itself and the values within it is very important in our organization as well as the peace activities. And this isn't something very new that we have created or we have written together with the HWPL International Law Peace Committee members. But just to note a bit of distinctive features within this document is that the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, it reinforces the sovereignty of states and human rights established within the Declaration of Human Rights, for example, within the United Nations. And also it mentions various documents that has already been adopted within the United Nations as well. So it also touches upon, it respects the already mentioned documents we already have in today's international society, but it also mentions and also emphasizes how we can combat and how we can fill up the loopholes that there exist in today's legal community in this world. So this DPCW, this document is composed of 10 articles and 38 clauses. And basically, it can be divided into 3 main parts here. So here you can see first is the conflict prevention. Basically, it's from articles 1 to 5, and it contains measures to prevent all conflicts. But in the case that conflicts do occur, we do have measures to mediate the conflict, and that is the second part here. It's called the conflict mediation, and that is articles 6 to 7. So if a conflict does start, then we can use these measures within articles 6 and 7 to mediate and resolve the conflict that has occurred. And next, when we have peace, when we have mediated the conflict, in order to have sustainable peace, we have articles 8 to 10, that is part 3 here, securing sustainable peace, and these are the measures to maintain peace after we have achieved it. Alright, next page please. So touching upon the first part of it, the conflict preventions from articles 1 to 5. So they are the measures to prevent all conflicts. So basically we have, for example, article number 1, prohibit the threat or use of force. Article number 2, reduce war potential and repurpose weapons to benefit humanity. And number 3, develop friendly relations and prohibit acts of aggression. Number 4, prohibit coercion against internationally recognized state boundaries. Number 5, ensure the right to self-determination of peoples or states. So we have created this, is providing the framework for conflict prevention on various parts. For example, weapons, and also ground soldiers, aggression, state boundaries, self-determination, etc. And next page, please. And these are each of the articles and the explanation that goes along with it. So we will not go through every single detail here because it would take too much of a long time, right? But we can send you this document itself, and also if you want to look through this presentation slide again, Mr. John and us will be happy to share with you this
Be our guest.
document. Yes.
Always.
Yes. So next page, please. Okay, part 2. This is conflict mediation from Articles 6 to 7, and it contains measures to mediate conflicts. And how we have provided the framework for this is that we are reaffirming the role of international supervision here. For example, the International Court of Justice, right, within the United Nations. And so we are saying that they should be recognized further and strengthened in order to have a peaceful dispute settlement when this DPSW gets implemented. All right, next page. And lastly, we have part 3, articles 8 to 10, that's from securing sustainable peace. And these are measures to maintain peace after achieving peace. And it targets on various number of people, various sectors of society all across the world. And it talks about article number 8, for example, fostering religious freedom. Article number 9, promoting peaceful coexistence amongst religious and ethnic groups. And articles number 10, spreading a culture of peace. And we believe that these 3 articles are, or at least articles 9 to 10, are quite, it quite goes along with, the situation in Nepal as well, and also, what we can cooperate upon later on, which we'll mention. But we are saying that, next page, please. We are saying that the government also, and also all the people in the world should have this role to participate in peace together, and they should all come together to ensure that we are having dialogue and not using force to create peace. So then these are the measures for sustainable peace. Next page, please. And so these are again the articles from 1 to 10. And with the explanations that goes along with it. I will not mention every single detail. I just explain the whole framework of this DPSW. So hopefully you can look through it later on after this seminar. But next page, please. Let's go on. But I want to explain you further on what we're doing with this document, the DPCW. So if you see in this map here, this we have gotten from this organization called Vision of Humanity, and it is from 2016, a little bit outdated. Maybe we'll update it soon. Yes, yeah. But this shows how peaceful, the state of peace in this world today. And you may have already found Nepal here. Yes, so if the greener it is, that means the more peaceful it is of that nation itself. But here we see is very colorful. So we are aiming to, and we are hoping to have all the states here to turn very green, so that it'll be very peaceful when we have implemented the principles of the DPSW. And so what we're doing is that we are taking on the principles of the DPSW, spreading it across the whole world through various peace projects where we work with the government, the youths, in various sectors of society, where we communicate and tell them about these principles of DPSW, and they themselves also participate in becoming peace advocates in this process as well. Next page, please. So we have the DPCW, but of course this is just a declaration, and that's not all to this our purpose here. What we're trying to do on an international level, so through the United Nations, this is the roadmap that we have created here. So it has steps 1 to 6, and so we have declared this DPCW on March 14, 2016 here in step 1. And we have gained a lot of support signatures and also individual letters, support letters. In support of the DPCW, we have around 700,000 as of today. And with all the signatures and all the support from the international community, right now we are at stage number 4 here, where we are preparing a legally binding document inspired by the DPCW at the United Nations with the deputies that we are talking within it. And hopefully we hope to get this adopted and implemented eventually through the United Nations. And we hope that Nepal will be a country that also agrees to this as well. All right, next page. So while the process is going on an international level, we are also working on a regional level as well. So here we have prepared the map of Nepal here. So and if you see there are little square, maybe it's too small for you to see what it exactly is, but these are the articles of the DPCW, and we have made this example mapping of how we are trying to implement the principles of the DPCW in each region of Nepal. So for example, in the region of Kathmandu, we can possibly implement articles 9 and 10 to spread these principles of peace within Kathmandu and eventually to the whole region of Nepal as well. So we are working with various partners. We are already in discussion with several of our partners who actually came to several of our events in South Korea. So it's going quite well, right?
Yeah. Actually, with Nepal and HWPL, we enjoying very special relationship and cooperation. It's a really special country to us.
Right.
Yeah.
So we hope to have this DPCW be implemented in Nepal so that when in the international level it gets adopted, then we can ensure the implementation of it as we are doing it right now. All right.
Actually, as having seen this map, maybe you can recognize the state of Lumbini where Buddha was born, and I think this is really symbolic because Buddha should represent peace, and it's a Nepal, coming back to as a state of that nation of peace will be really meaningful to the humanity. So we look forward to that.
Right, and it's great to see that Mr. Lenin is
Yeah.
telling us about the goal of your organization as well. It's great to have this communication.
Yeah, we'll get back to that,
Yes.
in much detail later.
And I have Mr. Kumar here. I think he's not able to go to the live chat, but he's telling me through the messenger on live. Yes, also responding. So
Yeah.
it's great to communicate like this. And
Let's be directive.
yeah, okay. So that's it for the explanation of DPCW. And to you, Mr. John.
Okay. Well, thank you for staying tuned with us. So here we have prepared a little bit of Korean history, and that would explain why we as a nation are focused on this peace initiative, and also it explains about why we come up with this idea, why we coined the term culture of peace. Actually, we came to believe a culture of peace could provide a solution for sustainable peace. So as you can see, there's a lot going on globally, and most of them the conflicts and the news of terror, and so it's still ongoing. And we came to believe that the world is becoming more peaceful, but still we see a lot more things to be resolved and long way to go. And actually it's been more than 3 years as for me since I joined HWPL, and ever since I work for peace initiatives in Nepal, and with this experience I came to know a lot of great people from Nepal, great individuals, hardworking men and women, and they're all care about the prosperity of Nepal. And they told me that they shared with us their story about their country, their background, and we get to know that Nepal has suffered some sort of, civil war, and we came to understand that there's something we gotta do about it. So if we understand that it's really hard to sums up just into one reason. It's really complicated. Nepal has really diverse background as to cultural and ethnic groups. There are so many diversities across the countries, and because of that, it's really hard to see just one platform to integrate, but rather just there could be more possibilities of, how can I say, conflicts. But that's what's been happening. But it's not that it is impossible to achieve peace. So that's why we are talking about cultural peace. Maybe later. I don't think it's my part. Okay, so just since I just began, just let me finish this. Let me quote a charter from the Constitution of UNESCO, where it begins: since wars begin in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. Actually, this sums up our intention, I guess, as a peace NGO. Just let's talk about culture peace, and actually that deals with minds of men, because it is minds of men that gave birth to the seed of conflicts. So if there's something we can do about it, then maybe we can start just by working with hearts of men and open their hearts and work together. And maybe that's the starting point how we can achieve peace together. Because actually it is most profound, but also it is really important factor which in regards to the cause of conflicts. Yeah. Okay. So here you see a cityscape of Seoul, which used to be nothing but ruins almost about 50 years right after the Korean War. Well, then actually Korea was one of the most poorest country in this world. And right after the Korean War, nothing left. Many people died. All that we could see was nothing but ruins and just death and famine. It was really horrible times. And now after 50 years, we became a country like this, who can afford some sort of decent life. So there's some history to it, and there's some story to it, and that's what we're about to talk about. And let me begin with the early of 20th century. Yeah, it's really history. Actually, 20th century, due to technical development, that this period was when those countries, some sort of global powerful countries, began their some sort of imperialism, and began exploring other countries so that they can sustain their economy and their some sort of national integrity. And naturally that would lead to global conflicts between big nations, and Korea was no exception. So while, as you know, Korea and Japan and China had really complicated history, because we are all neighbors, and as your neighbors, we get to sometimes get along, but sometimes we fight. And that was the same for us. Maybe easy for you to imagine the relationship between Nepal and China and India. Get the picture, right? So that's what been through, and that was actually gave rise to some sort of tragedy for us. So that goes back to year 1904, war called Russo-Japanese Wars. Japan tried to conquer Russia, and can you imagine? Japan was only an island, and just Japan conquering the big nation as Russia, that was quite daunting concept, and no one expected Japan would win. But you know what? Actually, it was Japan who won. You know what? Can you guess why? Why was that? How was it Japan won the war and some sort of took advantage over Russia? Partially because that was military support from Korea and China. As you can see on the map, there's a Korean Peninsula, and actually Korean Peninsula was the battleground, the war between Japan and Russia. So here in this consequences, we had to suffer a lot due to calamities of war, but actually we had a reason why we should help Japan, because that was really tough times and really conflicting ideas, and actually we are really fearful. Nobody knows what would happen. Maybe someday the other Western guys could invade us and conquer us, and we had to live in the fear. So actually, because of this, this helped us help Japan war against Russia, because it was Japan's cause of war that they will become a defender of peace in Asia. And Japan had a reason why Korea and China should help them, because if Japan win the war, so Japan will protect the peace of Asia. And yeah, so we believed in, and Korea and China actually helped them. But actually, what happened afterwards, after Japan won the war, was actually opposite of what we expected. Japan just occupied the Korean Peninsula and took control. Yeah, quite sadly. As you can see here on the left upper part of the map, that's Korean Royal Palace, and that's Japanese national flag hung over the entrance of the palace, which symbolizes this current situation, the occupation over Korean Peninsula. And Japan took control and take away the national sovereignty of Korea, totally stripping away of its diplomatic right and international some sort of right as a nation. So here in this situation, we Korean people had to fight back, because that's what you're gonna do in the face of enemy. Well, what you're gonna do if you are taken, if you're robbed or if you're in the face of death or something, you should fight back, naturally. So that's what we did. We call it military resistance. Although it was really hard to resist against Japan, they had a huge army. They had really advanced technology. They have all these, gimmicks and tanks and airplanes. We didn't have that, but we did have people. We did have this kind of determination to fight against Japan. That's how we can take our home back. So we settled some sort of headquarters of a rebel movement in the far north, and we began operations, international operations. And during those periods, some righteous people died and sacrificed their lives. And in the bottom right, and those are actual people, and they're only 20s and 30s, although they don't look that young, but well, they're really noble people. They sacrificed their lives for their fatherland. Yes. Next. And secondly, we just didn't fight, but also we did something really smart, like enlightenment movement, because that's how we, enlighten our minds. While if you are to fight with your enemy, you should also be strong, but also you should be smart, and so that you can discern what to do and what not to do. So the intellectuals and students gathered together, and they came up with some sort of declaration of peace, that kind of thing. No, that's really similar to what we did, right? In the DPCW. And you know what happened afterwards? Actually, the result of this movement was quite astonishing. As you can see in here, in the bottom left, this many people actually rose to fight back. Non-violence. There was no fight at all. What we need was just our independence from Japan and national sovereignty. And actually, Japan didn't just watch it and enjoy it. They suppressed. They took measure to stop this national movement. But that wasn't enough to stop the Korean people. Actually, this movement spread like wildfire all the way up to the far north of Korean Peninsula. And lastly, we call it international efforts. We did something international because that's what politics is about. And back then there was a Korean emperor, and he sent secretly some envoys to international conference, which took place in Netherlands, year 1907. And the idea was to appeal the case of Korea and have them support Korea for Korean independence. But sadly, this effort didn't really succeed. Actually, it was due to this event that made Japan took measure to take down the Korean emperor, and his power was taken away because of this. But as for me, I believe Korean emperor did something really noble. He did his best to protect his country, and made some effort. But okay, just let me go to the next slide. So this occupation period lasted almost 40 years, and this marked one of the darkest part of Korean history. And this period of occupation ended with the end of World War II, because that's how Japan was beaten. So Japan had to withdraw from Korean Peninsula and go back to their motherland, which is Japanese island. As you know, by the dropping of 2 atomic bombs in the city of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, Japan unconditionally surrendered, and that's how we got our liberation from Japan. So after that, there was a short period of joy. It was quite emotional time that we finally get to enjoy our liberation. But this moment of joy actually sadly short-lived, because after this short period of liberation, war came, and we call it actually a seed of some sort of separation between the North and South. It was okay that we see the end of the Japanese occupation, but Korean people, there was so many things happened, and after this Korean War, after this Japanese occupation, there were conflicting ideas, and that made us separated between the North and South. And also this was because there were two major powers back then, which is the Soviet Union and the Americans. The Americans settled on the southern part, and whereas the Soviets settled on the northern part, and they have different ideologies, and this did really spread, and ultimately these different ideas separated Korean people, and this separated Korea led to the civil war called Korean War. So here I'd like to mention about that we Korean people also went through civil war, as Nepali people suffered. So as a nation, I think we are on the same boat, and we've been through some sort of similar tragedies. Yeah. And this Korean War ended by the signing of armistice. I'm sorry, that was my Siri. I'm sorry. I didn't call you. Where was I?
didn't recognize that. Could you tell me your
Sorry, we call it some 방송사고, right? Anyways, I'm sorry. Let me get back to you guys. We love you. So this Korean War, well, since there's a limitation of time, we cannot go through all the details. But just let me be clear that Korean War was one of the harsh and terrible war of human history, because it began in a small peninsula, but because of that, many other countries got involved, sent their troops, and have their soldiers killed. So from the perspective, it has become a global conflict. And this war came to an end by signing of an armistice in the year 1953. But yet, let me just go past it. Just by signing an armistice wasn't enough to put an end to all these conflicts, since to this day, the Korean Peninsula divided between the south and north, and regarding our culture, language, and political system, the gap is only widening, and it is becoming more and more serious. So how serious is that? Well, to this day, we are experiencing conflicts, some skirmishes, and some attacks from the north. As you can see on the background, there was some attack from the North Korean army. People had to evacuate. Some people had to die. Some soldiers, it was our sons, sacrificed their lives defending our countries. And also there is also the problem, like, since the North Korean people and South Korean people are separated and we are not allowed to go through, there are separated families, and these people just missing out their separated loved ones, and they're becoming old. Sorry, just let me just be clear.
Yeah.
And they're they're dying because of they're aging. And this is really sad to watch. So let me finish my part. So this is why, as a nation, we come up with this peace initiative and come up with this idea, culture of peace, because we came to believe that it is not by force that we can achieve true peace, but only by culture of peace, by mutual understandings and mutual efforts to establish sustainable peace. Not by force, because we've been there. We experienced a short-lived peace by the end of war, but that didn't last long, but only resulted in more horrible consequences, which was Korean War. So no more. I think we had enough, and maybe it's time for us to work together to establish a true peace, which is everlasting. That's why we started this peace initiative in Korea. So after this, just let me pass it. After this,
Yes,
Mr. Lee will take over and just explain further.
Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that thank you for all the responses in regard to the Korean history section of the seminar. And there were some questions that were brought up that I would like to answer. And one of the questions that was brought up by Mr. Kumar, are there any proactive dialogue processes through your forum to resolve the present crisis of North and South Korea? I would like to say that HWPL is one of the organizations which supports the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula.
Yes.
And recently we have been starting to work in South Korea to more activate and be more proactive in gathering organizations and gathering individuals to support the peaceful reunification of South Korea. And we have been working on that, and we have we will work more upon that. So as you can see in our declaration as well, there are certain articles which supports the peaceful reunification of South Korea, the Korean Peninsula. And we are planning this year to be much more active in South Korea so that we could further on take this initiative so that we could finally reunify between the Korean Peninsula. And if you have been keeping up with the news, actually the Korean Olympics, the Winter Olympic
Yeah,
Games,
Pyeongchang.
yes, it's being
Next month.
held in South Korea. And for this, there has to be a North Korean athlete and sports team and the officials. They would have to actually travel down to South Korea.
Yes.
And there were some actually official dialogue between the North and the South, delegates from the government, and we have agreed to actually bring the North Korean delegates and the athletes to the south part of Korea, and we are actually gonna do like a march and an art performance, holding the reunification flag. So this is actually a big symbol for us
for peace.
Yeah.
as well. So this is the current status in which we are at in regard to this Korean Peninsula initiative.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar, for asking that question.
Right, we are very active as well in supporting this.
Yes.
Yes, to have a peaceful reunification as well. So actually, recently, there was this forum called the Korea Peace Unification Forum, held at Korean National Assembly Members Conference Hall, and we were also part of it. And together with ambassadors in Korea from 12 countries, and all gathered together, we have been in dialogue on how we can together contribute in this peaceful process. And we hope that our unified efforts together will bring some good results. And not just us, but we see that there is a need for our united effort for peace building efforts in Nepal as well. So here we have the seminar, and we hope that this will be the start of us in cooperation together for peace in Nepal.
Yeah, sure.
And I believe that it will ultimately contribute to Nepal's development. As
Right.
you have mentioned that South Korea we have developed in very short time.
Yes.
But I believe that this was possible because there was some stability and peace. So I believe that peace is one of the prerequisites in achieving sustainable development as well. So we wish to really cooperate with you guys on that part, and all the participants as well.
Right.
And Mr. Lennon actually gave us a question: how can we work stopping the use of child soldiers all over the world? To give my answer to this question, as you have seen in the declaration, there are some articles which prohibits the use of force, and also
Gradual decrease
yes,
of
Armament.
yes,
armament and soldiers,
yes,
etc.
military force as well. So through the implementation of the declaration regionally in Nepal, and through international society as well, I believe that there will be cease and the stopping of the use of child soldiers around the world.
Right. All right.
So if I go over to this part, I'll make it as short as possible. It's actually the footsteps that HWPL took to come to this point. And it starts off with in 2013 with the Declaration of World Peace. This is what started HWPL, and Chairman Lee actually he proclaimed the Declaration of World Peace and really specified the roles of politics, religion, media, youth, and the women. So if you look at the 6 sectors, we have divided into 6 sectors. And if you look at politics, we're calling on them to actually support the implementation of international law for peace and cessation of war. And religious sectors, we should gather to really reduce and really eliminate the conflict that is stemming from religion. And the youths, we have to gather together because they're the ones that go out and fight in the war. But if they do not choose to fight in the war, they will actually there will be no more war. And women, as a heart of a mother, really protect the lives and the people and the youths and the children, to really shun violence, but to face peace instead of fighting. And the media, we call on them to really report responsibly and promote message of peace rather than, wars and conflicts around the world. And the world, we really emphasize that each individual has the responsibility to achieve peace. One may say that, oh, my, profession is not relevant to peace or international law. But we believe that each common individual and ordinary citizens, if we have peace in our hearts, then that's the start of achieving peace in society as well. So we really believe that each individuals have its responsibility in achieving peace as part of the international society. So this is called the WWRP Summit, the World Alliance of Religions Peace Summit, and this actually is an annual commemorative event that we hold starting in 2014. And if you look at the pictures, we actually do many things. But one of the things that I would like to emphasize here is that there were actually many participants around the world, including UN representatives, youths, women, religious leaders, and press. And if you look
The list
at
goes on.
if you look at the pictures, you can see that there were many participants, over 200,000 participants. And one of the results, well, there are a few results, but one of the results that I would like to emphasize is actually the agreement to propose the enactment of international law for the cessation of war and achievement of world peace. So this is the part where we have started the initiative for Law for Peace. And a year later.
Can I mention one thing?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Just sorry for interrupt, but actually Nepal, one of the countries who took part in this very first agreement, so it is really meaningful for Nepal as well. Yeah.
Yes.
Just keep in mind. Yeah.
And this is the first annual commemoration of the WWRP Summit. And this was to gather one of the main objectives was to gather international law experts to discuss on drafting an international law which aims to achieve world peace through cessation of war. And I would like to mention this results. Actually, Mr. John, he actually participated in this summit as a protocol. So maybe if you could share, your experience in this part, maybe it'll be very helpful.
Oh, right now?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll just make it about, not me, but about Nepali experts. So as you can see here on the bottom right, you can see some, familiar face, who is Honorable Kedarnath Padia. He is about, I guess, here. He is fourth, right? Fourth from the left, and this is the moment we called out for international legal experts for the drafting of the DPCW. So that was even before the DPCW itself, and actually, it was through this committee that we came to have the DPCW. So from that perspective, this moment and this particular time is really meaningful for all of us. This is how we get this, this great document, which is DPCW. And also that Nepal was one of those, people, and that was also, meaningful to you as well. And I hope that all of you don't forget that and just take on this, some sort of glorious, initiative to you as well, so that we can go on, pass on this, great thing.
And also, before I answer all the questions on the chat, I'll just finish this part and then answer the questions. And so in 2015, like Mr. John has mentioned, there was one Nepali legal expert. And he actually became an HWPL International Law Peace Committee member. And these are the members and the legal prominent experts who have cooperated with HWPL to really draft the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War. And to answer the questions, maybe Miss Annie can answer some of the questions here.
Right now? Okay. So I see there are a lot of questions here from Mr. Kumar too. How much effect are you perceiving? So actually, as an NGO ourselves, and as an NGO that is working for world peace, we try not to take side in a political field, because we want to be as neutral as we can in trying to motivate all people in this international society to work together for world peace. So maybe we will not, speak about our own political, thoughts at this point of time. But maybe next time when we do get an opportunity to just have a chat together, we can together work, speak about it, about what's happening in Korea, etc. as well. But thank you for the question and the interest as well. All right.
Yeah. Well, and just if I add something to what just Miss Annie said, as Peace NGO, we took on some sort of a little different approach. Actually, the politics is the last thing we're gonna consider, and just we focus on the pure value of peace, which is as Liam mentioned, like air and water, just gives life for free for all, and that's what we're gonna do as an NGO and as a peace NGO. And let me answer the second question. In your opinion, at present situation, what are the major challenges of sustainable peace process in Nepal? Well, that's a really tough question. I've been working with some of the legal experts from Nepal, and I get to learn a lot from him. And according to him, just the implementation process took really long time. Well, actually, the process of having people agree on the peace process was painful enough, but implementation, which is taking place afterwards, is also really painful. And as a nation, as an NGO, we believe our approach that this provide the culture of peace to Nepal will ultimately help this peace process as well, because we are working on more profound, more some sort of overlooked part that governments or any other political party cannot touch upon, because we are dealing with people's mind, we are dealing with some sort of civil society parts. So that's what we're trying to do.
All right, great.
All right,
Let's move on.
Yeah.
So if I just move on, so after 6 months after the first annual commemoration of the WERP summit, there was the proclamation ceremony of the DPCW, and this is in March 14th of 2016. And this is where we have proclaimed the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War to all the legal experts around the world. And what I would like to emphasize here is that it's we've been actually celebrating and commemorating the date which this document was proclaimed, and we do this each year, like the WERP Summit. But this year we want to make it a little bit special, because last year we actually did it in South Korea, more focused in South Korea, but we want to actually make it an international event. So that we could, celebrate it in different, parts of the world. So this is
make it global.
Yes.
So this is one of the significant dates that we actually emphasize, because this is actually a really special date that this declaration was drafted. And like Miss Annie has explained earlier on, this is the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, which contains 10 articles and 38 clauses, and different measures to achieve peace. So Miss Annie already covered this part, so I won't cover this part. I'll skip over it and then go to the second annual commemoration of the WERP Summit. So this is the part where we have gathered UN experts majorly to discuss on how we could introduce the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War to United Nations. But unfortunately, since HWPL is not a state, we're not a member state of UN, we're just an organization, we cannot directly introduce the document to the United Nations. So we have done a meeting
Wow.
with governmental officials around the world. And there were actually very many governmental officials who were very supportive of this document. And we have actually gathered national level support, about 8 of them, to take on further steps to go back to their nation. And they would try to get and obtain the national level support to introduce the declaration to the United Nations.
Right.
And there were some legal experts who actually agreed to do a DPCW lecture, which was kind of very special. So to promote the declaration's ideologies and principles, and to teach the young legal experts about the declaration so that law can promote peace in the future. They have taken on special lectures to teach young scholars in their universities about the declaration. And this is the 3rd annual commemoration of the Warp Summit, which was held last year, September 17th to 19th.
We have several Nepal delegations, right?
Yes, we have
Yeah, we
several
did.
of Nepal delegates come to South Korea. And we actually did a regional level meeting and to really implement the articles of the declaration in Nepal through different kinds of peace projects. And if you look at the results, we have established plans for introducing the DPCW to UN and its implementation through collaborative projects in different regional areas. And to promote, we have promoted the collaboration between government and civil society. And this is one of the emphasis that we took on this year. Because we believe that peace governance is one of the important factors when it comes to achieving peace, because we believe that collaboration between government and civil society is very important in achieving peace. And if you look here, this is the regional meeting that we have taken on to discuss further on in implementing the articles of the declaration through different kinds of peace initiatives.
Right, and we did one for Nepal as well. And we did get signatures, support signatures to work together. It's in our office at the back. I don't think you can see it, but
Yes.
yes.
Maybe we'll send you a picture of it if you're interested.
Yes.
So Miss Annie has mentioned this part, but if I reiterate, this part is actually quite important. So we have proclaimed the declaration of peace and cessation of war, and we have gathered signatures, and we are still gathering support, and we have presented this support in the international community, and we are in actually step 4, the preparation of a legally binding instrument, a document inspired by the declaration. So we are speaking with some UN deputies in regard to drafting a legally binding instrument inspired by the declaration. And after this is introduced to the UN, there is going to be an adoption and implementation through UN, and this is going to be agreed by all states. And at the end, ultimately, there will be cessation of war and achievement of world peace. So this is the roadmap that we're looking at when it comes to this initiative called Law for Peace. So, like Ms. Annie has mentioned, we're cooperating with different civil societies around the world to implement the articles of the declaration. But we're doing this through collaborative peace projects, but we are not asking organizations to take upon a new project, but rather to implement the articles of the declaration within the projects that the organization is currently undertaking. So, just to let you know and re-explain and tell you again what Miss Annie has explained earlier on. And this is actually the Legislate Peace campaign. It's one of the campaigns that support the declaration. Like I said, there was signatures that were taken, about 700,000 of them, to support this declaration so that we could inspire it and make it into a legally binding document. So it has been actually done in Nepal as well. So it's quite active. So we want to actually reach out to you guys so that you guys could also cooperate with HWPL and take on the declaration's principles. so that we could implement a peace project in Nepal, in different regions as well.
Right. The more the merrier.
Yeah, more the merrier. So I just want to summarize what we have explained, today. So we have started in 2013. In 2014, there was the WRP Summit, the first WRP Summit, which we have gained a lot of support from the politicians, and this is where we started the initiative called Law for Peace. And 2015, the first annual commemoration of the WRP Summit was held, and there was the inauguration of HWPL, International Law Peace Committee, which one of the Nepali international law experts is, part of. And 6 months later, there was the proclamation ceremony of the DPCW, which we will commemorate in about 2 months, and we really wish to do commemorate in Nepal as well. And in 2016, September, there was the second annual commemoration of the WRP Summit. And last year, 2017 September, there was the third annual commemoration of the WRP Summit, and we are taking on further steps to really draft it into a legally binding instrument. And yay! So, Ms. Annie will cover this part. So.
All right. So this is the very last part, but also the most important part here. This is a proposal on how we can together cooperate on peace projects in Nepal that implements the principles of the DPCW. So how to cooperate on peace projects with HWPL. So basically, we are not trying to create or develop a whole new project together, but what we are proposing is that taking on the projects that you and your organization is already going forward with, we hope to integrate the principles of the DPCW in that existing project and develop it into a project that implements one or more of the articles of the DPCW. So what we would like to kindly request is that if you are willing to together work and cooperate on peace projects with HWPL, please kindly send us proposals or information about the existing projects or projects that you are planning to go forward with in your organization. And what HWPL will do is we will look through the different projects that's been ongoing in your organization, and we can review to see which articles of the DPCW out of the 10 articles is in accordance with the project that your organization is doing with. So for example, if you are doing a project, a peace project that has got to do with training with the youth, then we can possibly develop that project that implements the Article 10, spreading a culture of peace of the DPCW, and also instill the minds of the youth about what peace really is and how we can together build sustainable peace together. And that is how we can cooperate in this sense. But I want to mention a very important event that's going to come up, and a very important cooperation point that we can work upon is that, can you go back to the slide on March 14, 2016? So if you see, today is January 25th. So as Mr. Leo has mentioned, every year we are commemorating the anniversary of the proclamation ceremony of the DPCW, which has been proclaimed on March 14. And again, we have about a month and a half left. And this year as well, actually last year in 2017, March 14, can you show? It's on our website about the report about article about what we have done last year. As Mr. Leo has mentioned, we did hold this first annual commemoration of the DPCW with 1,800 participants in Seoul, South Korea. We had various very great, very good. We had various representatives, we also had some from other countries as well who joined. We also had members and heads of head of CSOs, NGOs in South Korea as well. And together we reaffirmed the importance of this DPCW and this peace movement that's going globally wide. And again, this year, we are not just going to do in South Korea, but we are going to do it all across the world with all our partners out there. And we are hoping to organize this second annual commemoration of the DPCW in Nepal as well. And we hope that through this event that will be organized sooner enough with you, we hope that through this event that the principles of peace will be instilled within the minds of the Nepalese citizens, and also to let people know about this global peace movement that has been going really, spreading really fast at this moment. And we hope that through such support all across Nepal, and together with all the support from all over the world, that we will be able to quickly finish and complete our goal and our initiative of Law for Peace, and have a legally binding document be adopted within the United Nations, so that all states will will stand equally on the international community itself. And we hope that you yourself and all the Nepalese citizens will participate in this movement, and also organize together with us on the second annual commemoration of the proclamation ceremony of the DPCW. But of course, we are not trying to promote the name of the organization of HWPL, but we are merely working for world peace. And we believe that this peace itself, it cannot be done by ourselves alone, but we believe that we need your efforts as well, especially on what's going on in Nepal. We are not completely aware, in detail. We do try to look out for the news online, but you know best on what's happening in Nepal. So with that kind of cooperation, and also with your organization, we hope to organize such a commemoration event. But just to note, because we are an international organization working with various organizations at an international level as well, actually it is difficult for us to financially fund single projects, but we can give resources, educational material, videos, banners, etc. That whatever we can do. Our organization, just to let you know, we are a volunteer-based organization. All of us here, we work. We have different jobs. We come from different backgrounds, but we came together to volunteer for peace together in this organization, HWPL. And so I hope that you are on the same line as us as well. But of course, if the preparation and the organization process is going quite well, we can also, if possible, go to Nepal, possibly, and also prepare with you physically in Nepal. We hope that there will be that opportunity soon, and we hope that we can together work to organize this commemorative event, and I hope that you'll be willing to do so as well with us.
You will not be alone, although financially you're on your own, but but
we will somehow
be
find
together.
ways to do it.
But I'd like to let you know that a lot of the things that we provide during these programs, like resource materials, like educational materials, and like the banner designs and etc.,
participants and everything too,
we could actually assist and contribute in making these kind of things possible. So although we may not be able to support you financially, there are many aspects that we could also contribute in our cooperation. So please do let us know if possible.
Yes. All right.
So,
Okay, so here the last the page of our seminar. It is really great experience to have you so far, and it's a really thrilled to have you, see you, all of those active questions. You're so happy. And lastly, last not but least, there's a survey that we'd like to collect from you. So please make sure that take that QR code and log on to our survey and reply back to us. So that's how we can start our discussion on peace cooperation afterwards.
And the link is also below the detailed information.
So
under
right
this
below
video.
the YouTube video, there's actually detail and there's a description of the video.
Right.
But on the description of the video, there is actually a post survey link. So if you click on that link, you could actually access the survey and fill it up. And if you submit the survey, we could actually get your necessary information for us to further contact each other so that we could cooperate together.
But of course, we will send the link to your email once again
Yes.
for convenience. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, please ask now because we're gonna end soon.
And go home.
Any comments are fine as well. It took about 2 hours.
Yeah.
An hour and a half.
Well, a lot longer than we expected.
Thank you very much for your contribution. To
Yeah.
All right. If that's the case, we hope to communicate with you soon after this seminar, on email, on messengers. I'm sure some of us here are using Vibers and WhatsApp. We are all on those platforms as well, so feel free to communicate with us, and we will of course send you an email soon after this seminar with the post survey link.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you very much
Thank
you
for
for
your
your
participation.
Have a great dinner.
And see you
So
see you again.
See you again soon.
See you again.
See you again.
Maybe in Nepal.
Hopefully.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.